Let's talk about studying for the CSCS examination, the Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist from the National Strength and Conditioning Association. So we've reviewed this in the past. I've talked a little bit about it. And just to rehash and to refresh, I think that if your goal is to become credentialed as a strength and conditioning coach or to get a job as a strength and conditioning coach, this is the certification you need to take. And the reason for that is it's the most recognized, and it actually is a test where you have to show up, take the exam. It's not just an online examination. You actually have to go in person and take the exam, which authenticates the certification. But in the future, the plan is, talking to Eric McMahon from the NSCA, we were actually talking about their new sports science certification on our podcast a little while back. But talking to him, he said that in the future they're planning to do something similar to what we have with our RD programs, our registered dietitian programs, where you have to go through an accredited bachelor's degree to end up getting the CSCS. So if you're planning to get it at some point, you may decide that you want to get it sooner rather than later, but that seems like a long-term plan for them. But I think that from a perspective of credentialing, the CSCS is the top certification for strength and conditioning. If your goal is to learn a lot and to really expand your horizons, learn different approaches, probably not the certification for you, because it's more of a test. It's more of, hey, you study, you come past the exam, and you're certified. It's not so much of a course, whereas other certifications and other options may be more of a course type of program. Those are designed to teach you and get you to a certain point. This is designed to make sure that you've met a certain standard. That's the difference in certification programs. Some certification programs are designed to get you to a certain knowledge level or a certain level of proficiency. Others are just to make sure that you've met a certain standard. And I think that's the type that the CSCS is, but they want to migrate into having both, where they're making sure you hit a certain standard, but they're also assisting you in getting there. And that's going to be kind of their future programs from what I hear from individuals who work there. But as individuals who want to take the examination, these are things to consider. It's probably the top certification out there for strength and conditioning. There's a couple other ones that are up there, but it's the most recognized. And if you want to get a job at a university, if you want to get a job in the private sector, I think it's a good option for you. Now, if you're studying for the exam, there's a few things you want to consider, and that's really the topic of this video. As someone who's taken the exam and has taken a few other certification options, I think that the exam is not extremely difficult, but it depends on your level. It's largely subjective, right? So like certain individuals are going to say, man, that was a really tough exam. From my perspective, I thought it was relatively easy, but that's because I spent a lot of time preparing and studying materials. So here's how I studied for the exam. I was in physical therapy school. I was in my first year of physical therapy school, and I'd already completed my bachelor's in exercise science. I'd been working in the field of biomechanics. I've been working in the field of strength and conditioning already in the private sector. I'd been a college athlete, and like I said, I'd completed an entire semester of my doctorate of physical therapy program. So I'd done a lot of studying of materials, and I understood biomechanics. I understood organization of muscular tissue. I understood a lot of these things, so that part I could just breeze through. But what I did was I took it over Christmas break, my first year of PT school. I actually just went and read the book in like 2 weeks. Most people aren't going to do that, but I just read the book once through. And then what I did was I went back to the nutrition chapter, and I went back to the bioenergetics chapter, where I felt I didn't have as much knowledge, and I read them one more time. And then I also had an app, which was the Pocket Prep app. I believe it's called something else now. If you Google that, it'll come up. But it was the Pocket Prep app for the iPhone, the CSCS exam. I took their free practice exam, which was like 20 questions maybe, and then they had like a question you could answer each day or something. So I basically probably answered 50, 60 questions, and I went into the exam with that, and I got a 90 something on both sections, so that was a pass. But going into the exam, you know, you want to understand your basics in physiology. You want to understand their nutritional recommendations. You want to understand how they set up weight rooms. You want to understand how muscle is organized. And I think for me, what I remember most about the examination was really being able to look at macronutrient levels, looking at athlete activity levels, and looking at those numbers and then being able to decide which was the right choice. You know, this athlete has been doing this nutritional plan where they're taking in 40% protein, 20% fats, and how would you recommend based on X, Y, and Z? Those are the types of questions they ask. If you get a practice examination, which I would recommend, or getting through an app or something like that, like the Pocket Prep app that's going to ask you questions, you'll get experience with the types of questions. But that's how I took the exam. Now, if you're in your bachelor's degree and you're going to take that exam before you finish and you haven't taken exercise physiology yet, maybe you haven't taken clinical biomechanics yet, and your muscular anatomy is a little bit shaky, I think you're going to need a lot more studying than what I put into it. And I think that if you have your bachelor's degree, but maybe you've been out of school for a while, you're going to want a little bit more studying on it. But if you have a great baseline or base level of knowledge, if you have your physical therapy degree, you're in physical therapy school, I think it's not something that you really have to worry about in terms of passing the exam, but I would make sure that you know the information. And the better you know the information, the more it's going to benefit you in your future. So these are kind of my suggestions on taking the exam. If you have an advanced degree, a master's degree in exercise science, you have a physical therapy degree, or you've taken some sort of graduate level education in those topics, I don't think you need the recommended 3 or 6 months of study time. I think you just need to go through the entire book. And if you go through the entire book, you're going to be all right on the exam. If you are coming from a place where it's been a while since you studied, it's been a while since you took these courses, or you haven't taken them yet, you're going to want to make sure that you really hammer home those topics, your anatomy, your biomechanics, and your physiology, and then nutrition as well, because that's going to be the basis of the exam. So that's kind of my recommendations on the exam. I want you guys to drop in the comments what your suggestions are for people. I'm coming at it from a different perspective, where I'd been working in the field. I'd already had a lot of education in exercise science and strength and conditioning and human anatomy and biomechanics when I took the CSCS, which is different than a lot of individuals. So if you're just starting off, or you took it right out of undergraduate with very little experience, drop that in the comments section, because people are going to benefit from that. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I hope this helps you guys. Like I said, if you understand the science, you'll do fine on the examination. If you struggle on the examination, that's a sign that you need to improve those areas. And it's in 2 parts. So there's 2 parts of the examination, and if you pass one, from my understanding, is you only have to come back and retake the one that you didn't pass. So just some things to think about with the CSCS. If you guys like these videos, I'll keep putting them out there. But those are my thoughts. We'll see you guys in the next video.